Okay, welcome to today's webinar, which is Organizing Your Document Set with Bluebeam Revu, presented by our friends at Novedge. My name is Nick Decker. I'm a Senior Industry Specialist with Bluebeam. And as the title suggests, we will be covering how to organize documents. And what we're going to be covering specifically is kind of in the AEC realm, architecture, engineering, and construction, specifically with drawings and sheet sets. So we're going to kind of hop into kind of the housekeeping. One, this is being recorded. So those of you that are attending, welcome. This will be distributed after today. Also, this is an AIA accreditation webinar, and so thank you for those of you joining for AIA credit. Just a little bit of disclaimer or housekeeping again. The information that is covered here is not approved, endorsed, or constructed by AIA. This will be an AIA credit, but that being said, you will have to be attending this live, not in the recording format, and you'll also need to be registered and viewing this on your own computer. We have some people who tend to watch these on conference rooms, and so each computer will need to be logged in under their own name, so we're able to track you and make sure that you're registered and viewing the webinar. If you do request a certification or a certificate at the end of this, feel free to contact us and we will provide you one of those as well. So on to the course description. What are we covering today? Digital documents can become much more efficient. I'm not going to read this entire thing for you, but they will become much more efficient if you're able to harness the information that's on the page to help reduce errors. And so being able to take information directly from, example, the title block and start to create smart, dynamic PDFs is really, really essential to modern project life cycles and being able to get current information out the door as quickly and efficiently as possible and with as few errors as possible. So we'll show how to do a number of different functions with around the same idea of creating smart PDFs, but the premise is all the same, that there's a lot of smart data behind the scenes that can start to be leveraged into these organized document sets. So the learning objectives themselves, we're going to start kind of simple in how to create page labels and ultimately file names, and then from there be able to create hyperlinks to jump around your document sets. We'll eventually get into the process of extracting documents out from a combined set into a single sheet workflow, if you will, which increases speed and efficiency and also allows for kind of combined editing between coworkers or collaborators as well. From there, we'll get into the sets functionality, which is a feature from within Revu that allows for kind of a overall organization of project files, kind of independent of computer file folder formats and things like that. It allows for kind of a centralized location for all project stakeholders to access and edit files. And ultimately, we'll get into batch functionality as well to allow for some comparisons and identifying changes between revisions of files. So this will be a pretty fast-paced webinar, so I will be kind of going pretty quickly through this. Again, this will be recorded, but if you have questions, feel free to, again, type them in the Q&A window. All right, so that being said, let's hop into the software itself. And I'm pretty much going to get right into it. Those of you that may be new to Revu, there's a lot of helpful information in the help menu to get you started, specifically the resources button and the help button here for some feature overviews, as well as some video downloads, or excuse me, video viewing, kind of 3 to 5 minute videos to kind of give you a baseline. But today we'll be kind of pretty heavily into the document organization as opposed to markups and takeoffs and things like that, other subjects that Revu is able to, excuse me, be able to work with. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start with a combined file, and this would be a file that would be sent to us from a drafting group, or released from a architect or consultant, and I may be downstream and need to be able to organize, or I would be the organizer before sending them out as well. So in this particular case, this is a 48-page file here. This is an airport project. And this combined set, if I come over to the thumbnails panel, and I will do so from the tab Access, this is basically a preview of all the sheets that I have here within this document. So as you see, as I scroll through, there's 48 files, but the naming convention or page labels aren't exactly anything that's useful for me to apply to different workflows and things like that. So that's going to be the first step, is really start to pull smart information directly from the page. Instead of having to go through and edit each one of these, and I'll just title this G0.01 because it's the sheet number, and then title sheet, for example. Oops, title sheet. Okay. So I went through and named that based on the information that's on the page, as you see. But I would have to do this 47 more times, which would get quite cumbersome. And this is obviously a stripped down drawing set compared to a lot of projects that are hundreds or thousands of sheets. Being able to having to do that every single time would be quite cumbersome. So instead, what we're going to do is automate a little bit of this process by pulling information directly out of the title block. So in this particular case, my drawing number and drawing name are down here in the bottom right-hand corner. And so what I'm going to do is actually automate this page label process from this information. So again, this will be something that we'll utilize throughout this webinar. It's a process called AutoMark, but this is kind of the first step to be able to get into those particular workflows. So in this case, I'm going to click this little yellow star here at the top of my thumbnails panel. It's called Create Page Labels. And it gives me a couple options. One, be able to create page labels based on bookmarks. A lot of times sheets that are created out of, for example, a Word document, maybe it's a spec that comes in and already has bookmarks created, things like that. Those would be very, very useful, and I can go ahead and automate that process. However, for this drawing set, you'll see we don't have bookmarks that are going to be useful, so instead I'm going to go ahead and create based on page region. So page region is going to work with that AutoMark process that I alluded to, and we'll see that again several other times. But the first step would be to select my first region, and this region will be my drawing number itself. So I'm just going to click and drag a region around that text, and what it's going to do is basically look for a snippet of text within that rectangle. And in this particular case, it finds a preview of a 1.1.1, which, if I quality check it, looks exactly correct. Now, I gave it a little bit of buffer on both sides, and that's to ultimately be able to allow for these numbers to get a little bit longer on different sheets or things like that. So I'm happy with this particular preview, but I am going to add a second region or additional piece of information to this file naming. So I'm going to select Add, and I'm going to select a region around the sheet name as well, or sheet title. So you'll see here what I did is placed an underscore between these two regions, and you'll see what this preview looks like, and this will be applied to each individual sheet. So Revu will go through and look in all of those 47 regions, or 47 sheets, and the two regions on each sheet, and pull out that text into editable information. Now, in this case, there's 48 sheets, but I've already renamed the first one, so I'm going to go ahead and skip that and create a custom region. Now, I could do it on page by page or custom region. I'm just going to do 2 through 48 in this case, and go ahead and click OK. Now, keep your eye on the left-hand panel as I do this, because this will very quickly create these page labels and ultimately automate this process for me. And so it's now complete, and you can see at a glance what each one of these pages is. and I can kind of pull this out and get a tiled approach and all this information. And I can also increase the thumbnail size to be able to give it a little real estate and see those actual text information be displayed. Now I can go ahead and shrink it up to a 1 column width and give it a thumbnail view very similar to Microsoft PowerPoint, for example. Okay, so the next step here would be to start hyperlinking my documents together. And so, for example, there may be a segment of the page that I want to go ahead and hyperlink together, whether it be detail callout or the region itself, to be able to see in a little bit more detail. The additional option, say for example, there's a markup on the page and I need to identify a certain piece of information that would pertain to something else. Maybe this pertains to RFI number 100, for example. I can go ahead and identify that, but I would also like to be able to jump to that particular RFI. So there's a couple options, and we're going to go through the markup first as a teaser for the content of the page. So the markup is just kind of floating on the page, and then we'll get into again the content, or basically the black lines behind the scenes, and as well as text, and then ultimately be able to do this kind of an automated process. And so that'll kind of be the 3-step approach. And the first step would be to create this as a hyperlink from the markup. So right-click, and this will bring up my menu here. And the one that we're looking for is right in the middle, Edit Action, and this will allow me to create an automated hyperlink. So from here, I can go ahead and jump to a different page within the document. And so in this particular document, go to what page I'd like, and ultimately be able to jump there. I can also open a different document. That's what we're going to do. But I do want to also mention be able to hyperlink to a website, for example, google.com. If I were to do that, that hyperlink would take me directly to Google, or more applicably, the ability to jump to cut sections or cut sheets on a website or something along those lines. So, but in this case, I'm going to open a page, and I'm going to open a particular file. In this case, I'm going to map back to my RFI. So this is open RFI, page 100. Go ahead and click OK. And now this hyperlink, this little lightning bolt that sits here, this will jump me to that exact file. So from here, I can go ahead and see this form, review all of the information that was identified, and then ultimately be able to review that information at the click of a button. Now, the great thing about hyperlinks, especially in PDF realm, is that it is an ISO standard, and so anything I share with someone else who's in any sort of PDF software, they should be able to follow these hyperlinks automatically. So just a couple caveats. One, they have to be able to access the path of both of these files, kind of the source and the destination. So as of right now, these files are sitting on my desktop, and so if I were to share these with people, it's going to try and map to Nick Decker's computer, which they probably do not have access to. However, if I'm working on a network shared drive or something along those lines, that's going to be a very useful path forward, because these will still be live. Okay, so the extension of this would be, excuse me, to hyperlink from the links panel. So under tab Access here, I can open the links panel, and this will allow me to start creating hyperlinks. And so, for example, I want to map to a 2.1.2. I can go ahead and pick a region around there, or directly select the text itself, and you'll notice it auto-recognizes the text. Oops, a little too quick there. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and jump to a particular page, or I can jump to a snapshot view. Snapshot's pretty neat because it's going to allow me a 2. Let's see if we have this here. 2.1 segment 2. Now, I don't appear to have that particular file in this set. Again, this is a trimmed down file set, but this will give you an example of what it is that we're going to try and do. So now as I come back and select that particular markup, or that hyperlink, as I hover over it, you'll notice that my cursor changes. It's going to jump to that exact region that I selected for, basically a snapshot view of that information. If I want to jump back to the view I had before, I'm going to select previous view. Basically works like a back button within my web browser, and I can go along my way of viewing the rest of this document. Now, the final extension of this would be to kind of automate these hyperlink processes, specifically when dealing with detailed callouts. Any sort of snippet of text that references a sheet number should really be kind of a navigation, so I don't have to manually go and try and find this sheet or this sheet. It would kind of jump to those locations for me. So that's exactly what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do so directly from File and Batch. Now this is a Revu Extreme only feature, and so there are ways to create hyperlinks directly from the interface without using Extreme, but they're kind of a handful at a time as opposed to kind of an automated process. You'll see how quickly I can create about 300 hyperlinks for this drawing set. So under Batch and Link, I'll select New, and this will prompt me to pick which documents I want to apply to. So in this case, I already have the document open. It's a combined set, and so I'm going to automatically create those hyperlinks. Now, it also added this RFI 100 that I have open, so I'm going to deselect that, uncheck that box, and just apply these to this combined set here. Now I select Next, and I'm going to create these hyperlinks based on the drawing number itself. And so I'm going to pull that information directly from the page region. Now, if I'd set up the page labels to just be the sheet number itself as opposed to the underscore and sheet name, I could utilize those. But I just kind of want to show the flexibility of both of those. So I'm going to select page region, and I'm going to map over to this location, click and drag, and be able to pull in that snippet of text. So I'm happy with it. It looks good. I click OK, and I'm going to generate the search terms. And basically, it'll look in that region on all 48 pages, and give me the results that it finds. Now, as I scroll through, you'll notice that it's giving me what seem to be correct results. Now, I have the ability to audit these or kind of cross-reference them. The other thing I want to mention is if, for example, I have a duplicate. So, for example, I'm going to change this change this result here to 7.07. You'll notice that I have two sheets that are now the exact same name. Revu will essentially not know which sheet to link to, and so you would kind of have to override those discrepancies, or it will not create a hyperlink for me. And so I'm going to go ahead and switch this back with the manual typing, which you're able to do with just a double click. So the last item I'm going to touch on is the ability to provide some sort of appearance or physical property, appearance property here, which I do under link options, and then I'm going to give it a yellow fill, for example. And this will allow my links to kind of pop out and make sure people are able to see and follow that those are live links. So now when I click Run, it will look for those 48 search terms across the entire document. Wherever it finds a snippet of text, it will create a hyperlink, and you can see here I created 295 hyperlinks, and I deleted one, which is that one that I created earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and finish and close, and I'm going to actually, as you can see here, all of these links that are now created, there's a long list that's available within this document. And each one of these is kind of mapped to its existing location. In fact, here I am on the title sheet, and each one of these is now yellow highlighted because it's mapped to each one of those locations. It has a physical property. So if I click on it, any one of these, it will jump me to that location. And you can see here how I can map to each one of these spots. Anywhere there's a detail callout, there's going to be a yellow link for those regions. I can always, again, use my previous view or back button to kind of do this in reverse as well. Okay, so that is the process of hyperlinking. Now there are a lot of other functionalities that are available. I can always create hyperlinks, again, directly from the panel. I can utilize what's called places as well, which is a pretty neat function. We don't have time to go into it today, but it allows you to kind of populate the destinations that you want to jump to, and then you can come back in and create these hyperlinks. There's also, I just want to mention it, the ability to create a hyperlink markup. And so from here, I can go ahead and basically have that hyperlink cursor live and ready to go, and I just highlight what I want to create a hyperlink on. Okay, back to the thumbnails panel. The last thing I'm going to touch on, and I'm going to do so, or last thing in this particular segment, the ability to extract out these individual sheets. As of right now, this destination folder that I'm going to send these files to is empty. I just want to kind of prove that before I run this process. But what I can do from here is right-click within the thumbnails panel and extract these pages out to individual sheets. If I had 100 or 1,000 files within this sheet set, it would start to weigh my computer down, and also, as I'm editing these, no one else on my team would be able to work in these particular files or have them not in read-only mode. So I'm going to extract pages. This is also available under Document and Pages, and Extract is about halfway down. So when I select the Extract Pages function, it's going to ask what pages I want to pull out. In this case, I'm going to select all 48 pages, do this all at once, and I'm going to extract them as separate files. Basically, I'm going to pull out each page as its own, and I'm also going to reuse those page labels that I created, as you see here, to name the files themselves. So this is a great way to run basically a batch rename and have all of your files with a consistent naming convention. I am going to uncheck open files after extraction so I don't end up with 48 individual files open. And this last one I want to mention is update all those hyperlinks to relative path. So the hyperlinks that I just went through and created, they're basically pointing within the document itself, but as I extract these out as individual files, those links would essentially break unless I was able to automatically update them. So I am going to go ahead and do that. Now, I would be able to run that hyperlinking process after I extract them as well, but it's just kind of personal preference on which step you'd like to do first. As I click OK, again, I'm going to pick that extracted pages folder here, press select folder, and it will start the process, and you can see that empty folder is now full of 40 files. So if I were to jump into any one of them, you'll see that this is now a one-page document, and actually the hyperlinks have automatically updated as well. So those detailed callouts that were originally jumping within the document are now kind of rerouted to hop out to a different document as well. Also with that, the title sheet still works as well. So that title sheet can now become kind of my hub or my location to start and map to all of my existing drawings from that point. Again, I want to reiterate the fact that after I go through all that process, I can share this with anyone and they're able to follow all of that information because it's a PDF file format. All of those hyperlinks would still be live for anyone else as well. Okay, so the next function, I know we're moving pretty quick here, is the ability to pull all these individual sheets into what's called a set. So let's go ahead and close all of this up and kind of start from scratch here. Sets is a function within Revu, available on all 3 versions. Under the tab Access here, I can pull up sets. And it is kind of an unassuming panel at this point, so it's kind of a blank screen, but essentially what this is going to be is my thumbnail view or my my navigation panel to all of the documents I'd like to work with all at once. And that starts here under basically creating a brand new set. A set will function kind of like a hub or the center of a spider web that will point to a number of different files no matter what folder structure they're located in. And so it's a really, really effective way to keep your existing folder structure, but have those files kind of pulled together into one pseudo document. So from here, I'm going to add what files I'd like to include. And so I'm going to add some architectural files here. But I'm not just going to stop at architectural. Obviously, a drawing is going to take, or a project will take more drawings than that. And so I'm going to go ahead and add maybe some electrical and landscape and structural as well. Now I have the option to actually add the senior folder, and it will include those subfolders as well, but I just kind of want to walk through this process so you can understand how it's all working together. Now, at the completion of this, I have a few dozen files, and they're all kind of in one central location. Now they're all individual sheets, so these will kind of function as if they're their own file, very lightweight. I can edit one at a time without locking out the entire document set, but it will kind of function to the end user as if it were one combined set as well. So it's very kind of a neat little hybrid here. And so before I go ahead and click OK and run this process, I'm going to hop into options. Now I'm not going to mess with sorting or categories today, but I do want to kind of talk through them a little bit. We're going to focus a lot on tags though. But essentially sorting allows me to understand how I want these documents to be revised and things like that. And so you'll notice this checkbox here is kind of an important one, sort tags, tag sheets by sheet number, which is a piece of information that will pull off the title block. Also within categories, this will kind of allow me to categorize or organize my files based on the first letter within the sheet number. So for example, the first letter would be G, it'd be a general sheet, C is civil, S is structural, you get the idea. Now I have the ability to edit these, rearrange them, and reorganize them as well, or start from scratch. So we actually see a lot of people utilize these, for example, for their specifications that have kind of a serial number. These categorizations can be a serial number that would base, all of the structural files start with 00, 1, 2, 3, or whatever it may be. And these, can be the filters based on that information as well. But again, we're going to spend a decent amount of time in tags. This is a new feature to 2016. And so those of you that are on previous revisions of the software, that's fine. Just I would suggest or caveat that you're all running the same year, whether that's previous version or it is 2016. As long as everyone's on the same platform, that's okay. Okay, so from here, I'm going to pull the sheet name and sheet number, or basically the AutoMark information from the title block, just like we've done before. Now I'm going to add two pieces of information in addition to revision number, and that would be discipline and sheet type. And these are typically, at least in the United States, kind of defined by the AIA standards. If that's what you're using as a naming convention, that's perfect, because those will automate based on that criteria. But we can also add different criteria as well to our tagging system, and this can be something as simple as the author, who drew it, things like that. I'm going to add the drawing date in this particular example, but I could do any sort of customization as well that I'd like to do. Now as I click OK, you'll notice that I'm prompted to auto information as well. So I'm going to have to tag or define regions for 3 criteria and be able to identify 6 criteria based on that information. So go ahead and click OK, run this process, and the first step would be to define a region for the sheet name. So scroll down to the bottom here. Same exact process we've gone through a couple times now. Pull that sheet name by the region. Again, give myself a little buffer in case the sheet names get a little bit longer. Go ahead and click OK, and it will look in that region across all of my individual sheets. Now it's going to hang up here on this G0.01 because there's no true title block. It looked for text in about that region, obviously didn't find anything, and so it kind of kicked back and said, hey, I need new information. Now, in this case, I could go ahead and give it a second region, such as sheet index, but in this case, I'm going to go ahead and skip it instead. and we can always come back and populate that, which we'll see. Now, sheet number, exact same process. And again, it's tagging several dozen files all at the same time. But as I click OK, it will find those tags. Now, the sheet number here is actually a little bit different, and so I'm going to go ahead and define this separately, and it will kind of give me a tiered approach to those regions. And so we'll always look in sheet or region 1. If it doesn't find anything, region 2, and so on and so forth. And you can have several different regions all pulling the same tag information. So the last snippet that we're going to pull is the drawing date. And in this particular example, I'm going to give it some bogus information, particularly the project number here. So click and drag the project number, and it should kick back, and it does. The 32322 is not a valid drawing date. Try again. So it won't allow for bogus information. It's pretty neat at how it goes about doing that. But basically, I now have to go back. It'll prevent me from getting wrong information, but I'm just going to provide it January 1st, 2016. Go ahead, click OK. It will add these tags. And again, it's going to hang up on the title sheet, which I'm going to skip as well. When I press skip on the last sheet, it will basically signify that it's done by providing me this table worth of information. And this table is all of the drawings and all of the information that was provided to review. So the sheet names were all pulled in, the sheet numbers, and the drawing dates we all marked. The revision number defaults to 0 because it has not seen a sheet number previous that matches any of these. Now, we'll see what happens when we revise files as well. But discipline and sheet type, again, are automating as well. Now, these two cells that are empty are the two areas that we skipped on that title sheet. So I'm going to go ahead and manually provide those as well. So I can do this all at once with several different files, or I can do it one at a time. So in this case, I'm going to provide a title sheet, and then go ahead and click OK. Now as I select OK, this will apply to all of those individual sheets all at one time. And so if I pop open, for example, the properties panel on this title sheet, you'll see that I have a tags section with all that metadata included in the properties panel. Also of note, if you have not used the sets function, basically what it's doing, again, is categorizing all these drawings based on the original letter or kind of first letter in the line. And so I can expand or collapse any one of these. And so I can see, for example, all my structural files or, you know, all of my electrical or architectural files all together, all at one spot. However, as is the case with just about any construction project, well, one, take note of the markups because we're going to want to carry those over into the next revision. But there's going to be times, obviously, that files get revised, and so I want to utilize this as my hub to not only have the latest and greatest files in front of me, but a historical kind of path of how these files have developed over the course of the project. And so we're going to do that directly from the sets interface as well. So in this case, I'm going to want to carry these markups over, whether they're just regular cloud Revu comments or they're takeoffs and things like that. I'm going to want to carry that over, confirm that those are still applicable, and then ultimately delete the ones that have been taken care of or are no longer applicable. Now, before I do this, I do want to kind of reiterate, if you do have questions, feel free to type them in the questions window, and we will address those. Okay, so to add new files, I'm going to come over to the next button in line under the sets function, which is add files to set, and go ahead and add those new revised files. So I'm going to select all those Rev1 files all at once. Go ahead, click enter, and without having to go through that tag process again, it will look in those automatic regions that I provided for it during the original Rev process, and it will tag these drawings automatically for me. Now, if my architect or my consultant is providing these and has not changed the arrangement of the title block or where these sheets are plotted, that should all be an automated process. Now, if it's not the case, you can always come back and add, again, different regions for the criteria or metadata that you're providing. So you'll notice kind of the difference between these files. So everything from here down are these revised files. And so actually a handful of these have a Rev1 next to them. That means that Revu has found this sheet number somewhere else, and so it's basically counting up in sequence from that point, so 0 to 1, and then ultimately 1 to 2, 2 to 3, so on and so forth. It's also accepting today as its drawing date, and so that it will do that by default, assuming that I want today's date as the assignment. Now I always have the option to go back and change it. So for example, today's date obviously is not going to be the date that these were released if these were released months ago. And so I'm going to go ahead and select all of those at once and re-AutoMark it. So select AutoMark, and I will pick a drawing date for it. In this case, this was all the way back in February, on February 2nd. Provide that information, go ahead and click OK. And now these drawings have been redated, if you will. Now, an extension of this, some of these files, in fact, all of these files from here down are Rev1 files, but they may not have a previous Rev0 file already existing within this set. So I can do the exact same process. One, I could leave these as Rev0s, or I can go ahead and count up using these arrows. So count up to 1 in this case, same process here, and these can now all be consistent naming. And so it gives you that flexibility to audit it, whether you want them to stay 0 or not is up to you in your existing workflow. So I'm happy with this. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. But note that there were 4 drawings that already had a Rev1 file, or Rev1 sitting next to them, because those will come up in the next dialog box. And it will basically say, hey, or excuse me, 5 files that it saw and said, hey, I've seen these before. Would you like me to go over all of the markups and information? Would you like to stack them? And then ultimately, would you like to supersede stamp the old file? And the answer to all 3 of those questions is yes. Basically, I don't want people to accidentally work off of an old file. And so I want to supersede stamp the old file to kind of make it very evident that that is an old rev. I also want to carry over the markups to confirm that my commentary was included during the revisioning, for example. And then ultimately, I want these to sit one on top of the other so I can go to one central location and see the entire history of the files. So as I click OK, it will essentially replace these pages or stack them one on top of the other. And now if I come down to my architectural files and click on them, you'll notice that on this Rev1 file, it actually has a whole bunch of comments on it. And these were comments that were carried over from the Rev0. If I jump back to the Rev0, basically click these little blue arrows on the left and right, it will jump me back to that particular panel, or excuse me, open that particular file with the giant superseded stamp, and then all of that commentary is kind of sitting behind the scenes. It's still live, and so I can still pull open those the pull tabs and be able to see that information, but it's not going to be deleted or things like that. It's still a live file just with a giant superseded stamp to prevent people from accidentally messing with that information. Okay, so kind of the last step within this sets functionality would be to distribute this or share this information with the rest of my team. I've kind of been working on my own, but I'm going to save this set and create kind of a new set here. And I'm just going to call it test, for example. And then I'm going to create some sort of drawing log. So I want to harness the data that I've been collecting within this tags table here. And to do that, I can utilize what's called export drawing log, which is under our publish button here within the sets interface. So export drawing log will prompt me to pull in all sorts of information that it would like to be included. So I'm going to deselect some of these. So file path, page number, page label are all kind of stuff I wouldn't necessarily need, but the rest of this looks pretty pertinent, so I want to include that in the export process. So as I click Next, it will bring me to kind of the drawing log settings window, and will allow me to kind of fine-tune what I want this to look like, and actually what file type I'd like to send it to, so PDF or Excel. So I'm going to send it to Excel first. Also, I can prefix the sheet name. I can also suffix the date as well, and create hyperlinks automatically to those individual sheets based on file paths. So really easy process, and then I can go ahead and send this file, which will function just like any other file, to a destination folder, kind of pick where I want to send that, and automatically run this process every time I save it. So that's what this checkbox would do. I'm going to deselect it this case, but it's an option to allow people to run this process. So within a couple seconds, I have this data in Excel, and this will function just like any other Excel sheet. So I can go ahead and sort and filter, maybe set to a specific date, or I can go ahead and search term to north, for example, and just pull up that pertinent information. Now I'm going to go ahead and undo that. Neat column here is superseded. It's a checkbox yes or no on whether these files are superseded. So this one is a check yes that it is superseded. So if I click on it, it should have a giant red stamp on it, which it does. If I click on the one directly below it, is the Rev 1. It says it's not superseded. I click on it, and it will show me the latest version that it doesn't have a superseded stamp. All right, so I can run this exact same process to PDF, and I just want to show you what that looks like. Exact same settings, and here it is. It's basically a table built into Revu that has all of this pertinent information, and so I can kind of buzz around, see all this. What's great about this is it allows me to share this information with people who may not necessarily be on the Bluebeam ecosystem. And all of these files will basically hyperlink directly to those particular files. So I click on it, it will jump me to that particular page. And this will also work with the iPad app as well, because Sets is not available on the iPad app. Okay, so cleaning this up a little bit. The next function we're going to hit on, and again, feel free to ask questions about this, but we're going to hop into the comparison functions as well. All right. So under Document, there is Comparison, and from here I have two options, Compare and Overlay. Now we're going to race through these really quick because we're a little bit short on time, and I want to get into the batch version of these as well, but I kind of want to give everyone a baseline of what these look like. Comparison basically allows me to pick two files of the same, maybe just a revision one of the other, and allow me to quantify the changes that have been included on the content of that sheet. So I'll pick the Rev 1, or Rev 0 and Rev 1 are the exact same file, and it will allow me to export or output a third-party copy with clouds of everything that has changed. And so it's going to automatically cloud all those changes, so it's nice and easy to identify what has been changed. As I click OK, it's going to run this comparison process, and you'll notice that I have these two files side by side. One that's the original Rev 0, one that's the Rev 1 with suffix of difference, and that basically is my, again, my third-party file. And each one of these clouds is signifying a change. And it can be something as simple as, for example, the walls of this office have been removed, so that office is now gone. Same with this office here. It was a corner office that has now been removed. Or, for example, some wording has been removed as well, so vestibule or concession in this particular case have been removed. It will also catch the little items such as print date, for example. And so I can click through from this markups list here at the bottom and basically see all of these changes in one succinct list and be able to quantify those changes. Okay, same exact process within overlay. However, instead of clouding the changes, it will actually allow me to pull the content into different colored layers. In this case, I'm going to color the Rev 1 green. The Rev 0 will be red. And so when I run this process, it will basically create one common document that will identify these changes based on the overlay of those particular lines. If I pop open the layers panel here, you can see that there's some red poking through, there's a little bit of green, and those are the different layers. So if I turn one of these layers off, in this case I'll turn the green layer off, the Rev 1, the red will shine through, and then vice versa. If I turn the Rev 0 off, the green will shine through. Where they land on top of each other will appear black. So now I can, at a glance, be able to see all these changes. For example, this overlay allows me to quantify how much that wall has moved, and I can, for example, place a measurement and be able to see that change. And that apparently appears to be 5 inches now. This drawing is not calibrated at the moment, and I would be able to calibrate that and do takeoff from here. Okay, so that is compare and overlay. I'm going to show a quick version of the batch functionality of this. Again, this is an extreme only feature. Everything else that we've shown other than the 2 batch functions is version or available in every version. But under batch, in this case I'm going to select compare, but overlay is available as well. So when I select compare, I can go ahead, find what folder I would like to pull from. I'm going to pick my original files, and it will pull in 5 files in this particular case, as well as my revisions, and 5 files here. Now these don't have to be identical quantities or the same order or anything like that, because it will go through a matching process and only compare files that are in both versions. And so, for example, if I had one less file from here, I can go ahead and remove that, and that's not going to affect this comparison process. So down here, it will allow me to pick what I want to match these files by. If I know that the file naming convention is perfect and there's no typos and things like that, I could go ahead and select that. Now, I'm a sucker for that page region aspect, so I'm going to select page region and run this AutoMark on it. Now as I press select, I'm going to match everything based on the sheet number again, as that should be consistent across both sheets. Now as I select match, it will run this comparison here, and it will 4 matches based on that page region data that was provided. The one unmatched file was the original version of that other file that I deleted, and so it can run this not only on 5 files at a time, but several dozen files at a time, and you'll get the exact same response. Now it will allow me to basically create a report or an output for all 4 of these files and where those are located. So I'm just going to dump them on my documents right now. But as I click OK, it's going to run that same comparison, cloud all the changes for me, and save them to that particular folder. And in this report, it's actually quantified these changes. So here's the old file, the new file, and then the quantified changes, which in this case is 11, 11, 19, 5, and then the unmatched file that doesn't have a partner. So from here, I'm going to create this report, save it in my documents as well, and as I click OK, it will basically just give me a 1-page 8.5 by 11 file that has links to all those individual locations. So the revised file will allow me to jump to the Rev 1. The current file will allow me to jump to the Rev 0. And then this bottom one, the comparison document, is that third-party file that will cloud those changes automatically. So if I select that, you'll see that I have those red clouds available to me again these are all clickable, and so I can click through and see all of these changes, and maybe run this as a side-by-side versus the original, for example. The great thing about this, in addition to it basically quantifying all those changes from revision to revision, is I don't have to send all of those files and all the originals and say, hey, here's the changes that were made and blah, blah, blah. I can just send out this 8.5 by 11, as long as the person that I'm sending these to has access to the locations of these documents, whether it be in the cloud or something like that. They would basically be able to receive these and just follow these hyperlinks without much extra thought. It's a really neat function for sharing these changes downstream or upstream over the course of a project. Okay, from here, I'm going to go ahead and transition back to the slides because I want to leave a little bit of time for Q&A. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and conclude the AIA continuing education aspect of the webinar. If you need additional information, feel free to contact Calvin at Novedge at the information below, calvin@novedge.com, and then the phone number that you see there as well. At this point, I want to open it back up, and I'll kind of stay on and go through some pointers and things like that. But if anyone has questions, feel free to, again, type them in the Q&A window. It looks like we did have a question here. Is this available on Mac? There is a Revu Mac version. So if I pop open bluebeam.com, on our website, they're under menu and products. If you come to review, there is an option not only to be able to see the regular review, and actually looks like they just changed it on a Mac. Check out Bluebeam Revu Mac as well, and this will give you kind of a rundown of what's available on Mac. Now it is a little bit lighter weight version than the kind of the power user Windows version, but there's a lot of functionality that I showed today, including overlay pages and things like that as well. So they're kind of an extension of that, how much of this works on Revu Mac. Overlay pages will work, so document overlay pages is available as it stands right now. There are some renaming functions as well. Now there's not going to be as much detail in the renaming page labels and stuff like that, but there's some enhancements that are available. But again, it's a little bit lighter weight than the Windows version that we saw today. If you do want to show or see a full comparison, here is the standard CAD Extreme, which are all Windows versions, and then iPad and Mac are available as well. So you can see, for example, Studio. All versions kind of have full capability within Studio for kind of workflowing between systems. In fact, I use Studio as my kind of file share between my Mac and my Windows environments because I can access those files in both locations from either system. You can see all the markup capabilities that Mac has. All right. So, question, any tips or tricks on how to use sets without bogging down the system for large projects with a lot of drawings and revisions? Fantastic question. And so that's something that we see a lot with our customers is when utilizing sets, people are really kind of pushing it to the limits. So there are a few tips. One, and it sounds silly, make sure you're working off the latest revision. There have been enhancements since 2016.0 that allow for kind of speed of rendering and things like that. And there are updates coming as well to kind of continue to enhance those improvements, enhance those capabilities within sets to not bog down the system. Also with that, I would say if it becomes an issue where rendering is a problem, you always have the option to create multiple sets that point back to the same files. And so, for example, we see a lot of people will create sets based on each particular discipline. And then, for example, if the structural person needs some of the architectural files included in their set, they can always point to those files as well as a separate set, but it's not going to affect any particular workflows with the architectural aspects or anything like that. And so it kind of becomes a little bit of a web that's all organized through this sets function, where I can kind of open up and just see the documents that I need for my particular workflows, which, for example, as a structural person, I would not necessarily need the landscaping or electrical, for example, or at least not all of the time. So that would be my tip or trick if it really becomes a cumbersome issue, is to kind of break those sets into subsets. And again, kind of overlap what files they point to. As things are updated and whatever it may be, as files come in, all of these will kind of trickle down to all those individual sets as well. If you keep your files updated, those updates should not be an issue across the handful of sets you'd have to maintain. All right, I'm going to stay on for about another 30 to 60 seconds. People to continue to type in questions. Fantastic questions. Oh, looks like we had another one that I'll address in a moment. But if you are going to sign off, thank you all for joining me, and have a fantastic day. There's a question, is there an iPad update coming that's going to be optimized for the iPad Pro and Pencil? So as of right now, it is fully functional with the iPad Pro, and the Pencil will work for a pin markup tool. So under markup, pin that should be optimized or available at the moment. I'm not 100% sure how it looks currently on the iPad Pro. I believe it works quite nicely. I've heard good things, but haven't seen it personally as I don't have one. But if you have specific questions, feel free to contact us, and I can get you a more direct answer on that, as I, again, haven't tested it out on my own. All right, looks like that's it. Again, thank you all for joining me. I'm going to go ahead and end